When the Galactic Council expelled humanity 73 years ago, they thought they were silencing primitives. They had no idea they were creating their own worst nightmare. The pristine halls of the Galactic Council's primary station hummed with the usual bureaucratic efficiency that had governed 1,000 worlds for millennia. Ambassador Zethkar of the hegemony adjusted his ceremonial robes as he glided through the corridors, his confidence as unwavering as the empire he represented. Today would be like any other. A few trade disputes, some territorial negotiations, perhaps a minor rebellion to suppress on the outer rim. The humans had been silent for exactly 73 standard cycles now. Not since their pathetic delegation had been expelled from these very halls had Earth sent so much as a diplomatic transmission. Zethkar's mandibles clicked in amusement. The primitive species had learned their place at last. Council leader, his aide whispered urgently as they approached the great chamber. There's been an incident. Zethkar's 4 eyes narrowed. What kind of incident? The monitoring station at Kepler 442. It's gone, sir. Before Zethkar could respond, the massive doors to the council chamber burst open. Inside, chaos reigned. Representatives from dozens of species clustered around holographic displays, their usual composed demeanor shattered like glass. The air crackled with panicked translations from 100 different languages. Council Speaker Mordoon, ancient even by eldest standards, raised one crystalline appendage for silence. Her voice, amplified by psychic resonance, cut through the noise like a blade through flesh. Esteemed colleagues, she began, her mental projection carrying undertones of barely controlled fear. We face an unprecedented situation. 3 of our outer monitoring stations have gone dark within the last rotation. Our investigation fleets have not returned. The holographic display at the center of the chamber flickered to life, showing the last transmission from the Kepler station. The image was grainy, distorted by electromagnetic interference, but the message was crystal clear. This is Station Commander Veltar to Galactic Council Command. The Vorthak officer's voice trembled through the speakers. We have multiple contacts approaching from the Sol system. I repeat, multiple contacts from Sol. These aren't the crude chemical rockets from our previous encounters. These are by the void. What are they? The transmission cut to static, then to a brief, horrifying glimpse of something sleek and predatory emerging from hyperspace. Ships that looked nothing like the primitive vessels in the Council's outdated files on humanity. Ambassador, Krelix of the Maritime Federation, her tentacles writhing with agitation, projected her concerns into the shared consciousness. Impossible. The humans have no hyperdrive technology. Their most advanced vessels barely achieved sublight speeds during our last contact. 73 cycles. Zethkar muttered, the pieces falling into place with nauseating clarity. They've been silent for 73 cycles. We assumed they were sulking, but they were building. Speaker Mordoon's ancient mind reached out to the Council's central intelligence network, her thoughts visible to all as cascading streams of data. Our intelligence reports from the Sol system are concerning. Long-range sensors detect massive industrial complexes on their moon, asteroid mining operations throughout their system, and energy signatures we don't recognize. Energy signatures? The question came from General Thane-Koss of the warrior caste, his scarred carapace gleaming under the chamber's lights. What kind of energy signatures? The hologram shifted, displaying sensor readings that made several council members recoil in recognition and terror. Quantum entanglement matrice, antimatter containment fields, zero-point energy extractors. Technologies that some council species had taken millennia to develop. Speaker, Ambassador Zethkar's voice carried a note of genuine fear now. How is this possible? The humans were classified as a Type 0.7 civilization barely 3 standard centuries ago. As if summoned by their growing dread, the chamber's communication array suddenly activated without authorization. Every defensive protocol in the station triggered simultaneously. Blast shields slamming shut, energy barriers crackling to life, defensive fleets scrambling to intercept whatever had just bypassed their most secure networks. But there was no attack, only a transmission. The hologram at the chamber's center dissolved, replaced by the image of a human. But this wasn't the timid diplomat who had pleaded for Earth's inclusion in the Galactic Council decades ago. This human wore no elaborate robes or ceremonial decorations. Instead, she stood in what appeared to be the command center of a vessel, surrounded by displays showing star charts and tactical information that made several military advisors in the chamber gasp in recognition. "Greetings, Galactic Council," the human said, her voice carrying none of the deference they remembered.
"I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. We need to talk." The chamber erupted in outraged, chittering psychic screams and demands for explanations.
How had they penetrated the Council's most secure communications? How had they traveled from Sol to the Galactic Core without using any of the established hyperspace lanes? Admiral Chen waited patiently for the noise to die down, then continued as if she hadn't just demonstrated capabilities that shouldn't exist. 73 years ago, you expelled our diplomatic mission from this station. Your exact words, as recorded by our delegation, were humanity lacks the maturity and technological sophistication to join galactic civilization. You gave us a choice: submit to protectorate status under the hegemony, or remain isolated in our system until we evolved enough to deserve consideration. Speaker Mordoon's ancient voice cut through the tension. "Admiral Chen, while your technological progress is impressive, the breaking of communication protocols and unauthorized access to Council networks cannot be unauthorized." Chen's laugh was sharp as broken glass. "Speaker Mordoon, we own your networks now. Have for about 6 months. Every communication, every strategic plan, every dirty little secret you've been keeping from your member species. We know about the hegemony slave worlds. We know about the Maritime Federation's biological weapons program. We know about the systematic suppression of emerging civilizations." The chamber fell into absolute silence. Even the translator system seemed to hold their breath. "But we're not here for blackmail or revenge," Chen continued, her image shifting as the camera pulled back to reveal the true scope of her vessel's command center. It was vast, filled with hundreds of human officers working at stations displaying technologies that made the Council's most advanced systems look primitive by comparison. "We're here to deliver a message and a demonstration." The hologram switched to an external view of the Admiral's ship, and several Council members immediately collapsed in shock. The vessel was massive, easily Dreadnought class by Council standards, but its design was unlike anything in their databases. Where Council ships were bulky utilitarian affairs built around massive reactor cores and weapon systems, this human ship was sleek, organic-looking, covered in what appeared to be a living hull that rippled with barely contained energy. "The UED's Prometheus," Chen's voice continued over the impossible image. "Our first true starship launched 2 years ago. Length 15 kilometers. Crew 50,000. Primary armament weaponized gravity wells. Secondary systems include dimensional fold drives, quantum entanglement communications, and something we call aggressive terraforming packages." General Thanekas found his voice first. "Impossible. Those technologies, they're theoretical even for the eldest races." "We're theoretical," Chen corrected. "You see, General, when you left us alone for 73 years, you made a critical error. You assumed we would develop along the same technological paths as your member species. You assumed we would follow the same social and political evolution patterns that you've seen 1,000 times before." The image shifted again, showing the Sol system as the Council had never seen it. The asteroid belt had been almost completely mined out, replaced by massive construction facilities. Mars glowed with the light of terraforming operations. The moon's surface was covered in industrial complexes that dwarfed anything the Council had ever built. "But humans don't follow patterns," Chen continued. "We don't develop steadily and predictably. We don't respect the limitations that other species accept. When you threaten us, when you dismiss us, when you tell us we're not good enough, we don't just get angry. We get innovative." The external view switched to show not one ship but dozens. The Prometheus was merely the flagship of a fleet that had somehow approached the Council's most secure station without triggering a single, long-range sensor. "The Council has 48 hours to respond to our terms," Admiral Chen announced, and data packages began flooding every system in the chamber despite all security measures. "Full membership for Earth with all rights and privileges thereof. Immediate cessation of all suppression protocols for emerging civilizations. And the dissolution of the hegemony's slave world program." Ambassador Zethkar's voice cracked with disbelief. "You cannot simply dictate terms to the Galactic Council. We represent civilizations that have existed for millions of years." "And yet," Chen replied calmly, Not one of you saw us coming until we were already here. Not one of your great civilizations developed these technologies in a fraction of the time it took us. Ambassador Zethkar, your hegemony controls 200 worlds through fear and superior firepower. Would you like to know how many ships we've built in the last 5 years? Before anyone could respond, the tactical display showed the truth. Thousands of contacts spread throughout the galaxy, all broadcasting the same quantum signature as the Prometheus. Not invasion fleets. They were too small and too dispersed for that. But monitoring stations, sensor platforms, a network that had been watching the Council for months without detection. We're not conquerors, Admiral Chen said, and for the first time, her voice carried something that might have been sympathy. We're humans. We believe in cooperation and trade and the exchange of knowledge and culture, but we also believe in justice, and we will not allow the systematic oppression of species who remind us of ourselves. Speaker Mordun's ancient mind reached out, trying to comprehend the magnitude of what they faced. Her thoughts, visible to the entire council, painted a picture of a species that had somehow compressed millennia of technological development into less than a century. Admiral Chen, she projected, her mental voice carefully controlled. Your species has achieved remarkable progress, but surely you understand that the galactic community has procedures, protocols that have maintained peace for who? Chen interrupted. Peace for the established powers while smaller species are conquered, enslaved, or exterminated? Speaker, our monitoring networks have recorded 17 genocides in the last decade alone, all committed by council member species. Your peace is built on the silence of the dead. The chamber erupted again, but this time the protests were weaker, more desperate. Too many of the accusations were hitting too close to home. What you're proposing, General Thanekoss said, his military mind already calculating odds and outcomes, would destabilize the entire galactic order. Good, Chen replied without hesitation. Your galactic order is built on stagnation and oppression. It's time for something better. The hologram shifted one final time, showing Earth itself, but not the primitive world the Council remembered. This Earth blazed with the light of a truly advanced civilization, its cities visible from space, orbital installations creating a glowing web around the planet. We've learned to terraform worlds in years instead of millennia. We've developed faster-than-light communication that makes your quantum entanglement networks look like smoke signals. We've built ships that can cross the galaxy in weeks instead of decades. And we did it all without following your rules, your limitations, your narrow-minded view of what's possible. Admiral Chen's image paused, allowing the weight of her words to settle over the chamber like a shroud. When she continued, her voice carried a finality that made several council members shiver despite themselves. But more than any of that, we've learned something that your great galactic civilization never understood. Progress doesn't come from maintaining the status quo. It comes from being willing to risk everything for the chance at something better. The tactical displays around the chamber began updating in real time, showing human ships decloak throughout known space. Not weapons platforms or invasion forces, but something far more dangerous to the established order. Aid ships. Medical vessels heading for plague-stricken worlds. Construction fleets moving toward systems where struggling colonies fought for survival. Transport ships carrying food and supplies to species that the Council had deemed not worth the investment. You have 47 hours and 36 minutes to decide, Chen announced. Accept our terms, welcome us as equals, and begin the work of building a galactic community based on cooperation instead of domination. Or reject our offer, and discover exactly how creative humans can be when we put our minds to protecting those who cannot protect themselves. The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. For long moments no one spoke. The greatest minds of galactic civilization struggled to process what they had just witnessed. A species they had dismissed as primitive had not only achieved technological superiority, but had done so while maintaining moral principles that made the Council's compromises look shabby by comparison. This is impossible, Ambassador Zethkar whispered, but his words carried no conviction. The evidence was undeniable. Humanity had not just caught up to galactic civilization, they had surpassed it in ways that redefined what was possible. No. Speaker Mordun's ancient voice carried new understanding. It's human. General Thanekoss was already reviewing tactical reports, his military mind accepting what his pride could not. Our fleets, they're outgunned, outmaneuvered, and outnumbered. But more than that, they're fighting for a dying system while the humans are fighting for their vision of the future. Then we surrender? Ambassador Krelix's tentacles writhed with humiliation. We evolve, Speaker Morden corrected gently, as the humans did, as they're challenging us to do. The Great Chamber's displays began showing reports from across the galaxy. Human medical ships were already saving lives on worlds the Council had written off. Human construction fleets were building infrastructure on colonies that had been struggling for decades. Most shocking of all, human diplomats were making contact with species that the Council had never known existed, species that had been hiding in the shadows, too afraid of the established powers to reveal themselves. 6 months later, the Galactic Council chambers looked very different. The rigid hierarchies of the old system had given way to something more fluid, more dynamic. Species that had been marginalized for millennia now had voices in galactic affairs. Technologies that had been suppressed or hoarded were being shared freely. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the speaker's podium, no longer in her military uniform but wearing the simple robes of Earth's first galactic ambassador. Around her, representatives from 300 species, twice as many as had existed under the old system, worked together on challenges that would have been impossible to address under the hegemony's rule. The question, she said to the assembled delegates, is not how humanity achieved what we achieved. The question is why it took us so long to realize that we didn't have to accept limitations imposed by others. She gestured to the great viewing wall, where Earth hung in space like a blue jewel, surrounded by the lights of 1,000 ships from 100 worlds, all working together, all contributing to something greater than themselves. The galaxy is vast, Admiral Chen concluded, full of wonders we've never imagined, challenges we've never faced, and potential we've never dared to dream of. The old council asked what we could contribute to their established order. The new council asks what we can build together. Outside the station, human ships worked alongside vessels from across the galaxy, their crews learning from each other, sharing knowledge and dreams in equal measure. The age of stagnation was over. The age of humanity had begun. This HFY story script explores themes of human determination, technological innovation, and the power of rejecting artificial limitations. It's structured for dramatic reading with clear story beats and satisfying character arcs typical of the humanity. But yeah, genre.